Hey there, creepy peeps. My name is Nightmare Maven, and I love talking about horror. And I also might be becoming a Stephen King fan. If you're brand new here, I'll explain that intro in a second. If you're returning, welcome back. Hopefully you are already caught up. If not, I'll explain in a second. So if this is your first video ever, or if it's your first video in this series, I will catch you up really quick. I challenged myself to read one Stephen King book per month to see what happens. And that's it. And into this more on the not quite a fan side, and I'm just gonna see where we end up about this time next year. So I decided for December I wanted to emotionally wreck myself and read Pet Sematary. I've seen the movie quite a few times, so I know the major themes of the story are death, dying, grief, what happens after we die, etc. And we're coming up on the 1-year anniversary of my mom's death literally this month, so I knew going in that I was either in a really good or a really bad emotional state to be reading this particular book. All of that to say, I cried like the water sign that I am while reading this. But that's usually a good sign for me. Like if a book or a movie or show or whatever it is gets to me to the point where I openly weep, that just means it's like touched me in my heart space, and that's always a good sign. And I really enjoyed this despite the tears. So my normal gripe with good old Mr. King is that he does what a lot of his author cohorts do and describes female characters in such a way that lands him on the men writing women subreddit often. And either I've gotten used to this by now, not likely, or it just wasn't present as frequently in this book. Now that I'm thinking about it, Rachel spends a good chunk of the book like out of the house. You know, a whole lot happens when the kids and Rachel go to Rachel's parents' house for Thanksgiving and Lewis stays at home. So maybe it was just that she wasn't in the book a whole lot. Either way, there really weren't any parts, many parts that that were just so ridiculous that it took me out of the story for a moment, which is what normally happens when I try and read his books. I will say the one that sticks out to me though is when reanimated Gage is like talking to Judd about how much of a slut Norma is or whatever. And why do like possessed, reanimated like people, demons, devils, whatever, why do they always resort to like your mother's a whore or whatever as an insult? I just, that's the worst thing. That's the worst thing that these like demons and whoever else bad people can come up with. In terms of the scary scenes, I think this is the first one that stuck with me for a little bit after I'd finished reading it. One scene in particular that I want to mention is when Gage has come back from the dead. He's been buried in the Micmac burial ground and he's come back. Lewis is like passed out on his bed, exhausted, and Gage creeps back into the house to steal Lewis's scalpel, and he goes over and pays Judd a visit. But during that scene, just the description of him like creeping into the room to get the scalpel, and this like the description of his like shadowy silhouette standing in the doorway while Lewis is sleeping in bed and not realizing what's happening was so terrifying. Like later that evening when I went to go to bed, as soon as I got comfortable, I closed my eyes, and then as soon as I did that, all I could think about was a shadowy figure standing in my doorway getting ready to like creep into my room, and it took me a little bit to fall asleep that night. This one moves pretty fast also, I have to say. I know a lot of people talk about Stephen King's writing being like super long-winded, and I don't disagree with that so far. The majority of the books that I've read of his thus far, which mind you is not that many, have been super long-winded. This one moved really fast. I feel like, you know, it got into the action really quick after setting up the characters, and we didn't really like waste our time anywhere. I didn't feel that way anyway. And it was like, I mean, it was even so quick. Mary Lambert's film adaptation pretty much included everything, more or less. Like, it, you know, I didn't feel like anything major was cut except for Norma as a character, and then making like a minor character, Mrs. Dandridge, like a maid, and having her hang herself and stuff. And despite the number of times I've seen the movie and how familiar I am with the movie, I feel like the book was better. Even though it made me cry, the inner dialogue of the characters, like dealing with their grief and the loss of a loved one, really elevated the story for me. It made it more than a scary story. I already knew it was a scary story. Definitely didn't disappoint in that arena either, but it was just so much more than just a spooky story about the dead coming back to life. And then rewatching the movie after I'd read the book, just as a refresher, I feel like it was such a stark comparison. The book just felt so much scarier, like, as I rewatched the movie. Reanimated Gage just kind of looked silly to me after what I read in the book. But to be fair, that bit where he like Superman flies down from the attic at Lewis has always made me laugh. So I gave this a 4.75. I feel like I'm holding out on giving anything 5 stars yet in this Stephen King journey. Maybe after I've read a few more of his books and I have more to compare to as I read, my ratings may change. That's something that might happen as I, you know, as I read more. But I feel like there is still potential for that perfect Stephen King book. So I don't know if this is it yet. I don't know if Dolores Claiborne is it yet. We'll see. So right now I'm just going to safely sit at 4.75, which is really, really good. The only problem is I also gave Dolores Claiborne a 4.7 out of 5. So where do I put Pet Sematary in this? I liked them both for completely different reasons, and they are both completely different books, like both in the way they're written, the subject matter. I'm tempted to put them both at #1 as a cop-out, but I feel like I can already just sense you guys getting ready to yell at me in the comments for doing that, so I won't do that. The only problem is I couldn't even decide when I was writing the notes for this video, so this is what I left myself in my notes. Thank you, past me. For now, I'm gonna put Pet Sematary as #1. That may change. Don't get too excited yet. Imagine this ranking is gonna look vastly different this time next year when I've read even more Stephen King books. So this is my ranking, and I'm sticking to it for now. Of course, if you've read Pet Sematary, as I'm sure a lot of you have, let me know in the comments what you thought about it, how it compares to the movie for you. In terms of the Stephen King book I'm gonna read next month, I have 2 here that I've purchased already, and I can't decide which one I want to go for. So it's between Misery, which I am familiar with, or if I want to start off the new year with one that I am not familiar with at all. I know there is a movie adaptation, I've just never seen it, and that is Needful Things. This one is a whole hell of a lot thicker though. These are the 2 I have on my shelf right now. Well, technically I also have Dr. Sleep on my shelf. I can see it right there. I don't know if I want to read Dr. Sleep, and I still haven't seen the movie, so I guess maybe Dr. Sleep can be in the running. Let me know which one you think I should read next in the comments, please, and help me out. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. It really helps me out. Subscribe if you're new here. Become a creepy peep today. I post a new video every week, which means I'll see you very soon. Until then, stay strange. Bye.